What is up, everybody? We are live on like 3 different platforms right now. Big story today. Actually, someone who we just barely had on the show Sunday evening, Piper Hutchinson from Louisiana Illuminator, and a contributor to Tiger Rag, I believe, as well. I think that's what we got mixed up in that situation. But she has joined a lawsuit against LSU athletics with Todd Horn, who my guy from Tiger Rag, absolutely love that dude. And WAFB's Chris Nakamoto. So they're suing LSU after a Freedom of Information Act request was denied. We will have Piper Hutchinson return to the show right here and discuss what's going on here and why they're suing LSU and what they're looking for. And really, this is a very interesting story, and it's about a lot of the things we were just barely talking about just a few days ago. A lot of the deep dives on the budget and stuff, and I'm kind of listening to her talk about the budget and how she's combing through the weeds, and sometimes you find some things that maybe raise some alarms, and we're gonna have Piper join us right now. Very, very, very in demand. Yo, Piper, can you hear us?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, indeed. How you doing?
Doing all right. How about you?
Doing okay. I mean, you're very in demand. We're lucky we got you on tonight. This
Wouldn't
is
miss
this.
it.
Well, thank you very much for making time with us. We had you on just a few days ago, just on Sunday, and you said something big was coming, and here it is. My guy Todd Horn, who's been really, really good to me over the years. Really love that guy. He's going to join the show tomorrow. Actually, he was going to join tonight, but he didn't want to take your moment away, and so he's like, I'll come on tomorrow. And then WFB's Chris Nakamoto, who's he's broken some big stories over the years. You guys have issued a lawsuit against LSU. Why? Tell the average fan why.
So, starting this year, universities, specifically Division I athletic programs, are allowed to directly pay players. And we want to know how much they're paying the players, because this is an expenditure of public money, and I think the public has a right to know how it's being spent.
Absolutely. And, because the transparency of that, it's being public funds, that makes total sense. But there is the question of, they are not state employees, they're not public employees. Is the money, do you believe that there is public money going to those athletes from NIL?
Well, we're not seeking these players' NIL deals with private companies. Those are absolutely shielded under the existing public records law. I actually was in the room when they passed that law, so I'm very familiar with it. This doesn't really apply here because it's a direct payment from universities from public funds. And so that's kind of sets that expenditure apart.
Okay. And what is the main info you guys are after?
We want to know the details on how this money is being spent. So who it's going to, how much they're getting. It's pretty basic information that should be available to the public, just in the same way that how much money LSU gives to other companies, individuals, any number of things that LSU is spending their money on.
Yeah, for years, I mean, I was blown away how you can just go onto their website and it's right there, all the information, all the contracts put out there. But once again, the the NIL, these deals, not of public record yet because they are not technically state employees. Once again, I feel like, do you guys think that once you guys, maybe if you get your request approved, that you're going to find that public money has gone towards NIL, or that there is some type of issue with the revenue sharing? What are you guys kind of looking for with that freedom of information request?
It's not really a question about whether public money is being spent. We know that public money is being spent. The revenue part in revenue sharing implies that it is athletic department revenue, which is public money. And regardless of, whether or not they're employees, that's not really at issue here, because, LSU is spending money on, other individuals, companies, vendors that are not state employees. So, in terms of what kind of reporting comes from this, I think that depends on what's in the records. At a basic level, I think that any expenditure of public money is in the public interest and should be available to the public. I don't think we're going to find some kind of scandal. Certainly, I hope that LSU is not misspending public money in that way. I think at the very basic level, this is just about finding out how public money is being spent, and making that information public, just in the same way that, like, every year after the state budget is passed, I put out an article about how much cash each university is getting for their construction projects. It's not a scandal that LSU got, $10 million for its library, but it is in the public interest. The public
Yes.
likes to know these things, and I put it out there.
No, I totally get that, and I think that's why, I get why fans are upset about it. On the surface, they see you're trying to get my team in some scandal. From my side, someone who's actually issued these freedom of information requests and been denied by LSU for a few things, actually. So I understand this dynamic, not to this level though, or issuing a lawsuit, but this is actually quite commonplace, and it's not quite a war with LSU, but more of a, hey, let's get this information out there. Let's get this information to be made public. But why should the common fan support you guys in your quest to find these numbers? Why do you think maybe there's a different narrative than the reality that's maybe being spun out there?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to hurt LSU. I'm an LSU alum, I care a lot about the university. It's never my goal to hurt anybody. But I think, getting to the truth of things, finding out basic facts is ultimately, what my job is. And I think that everybody has an interest in knowing and understanding how public money is being spent. Even if you're a fan of LSU, you want to know how much we're paying Lane Kiffin, how much we're paying Wade Roos. You want to understand those things. You want to know how much money we might be spending on a new PMAC. Those are all things that fans are interested in, and I think ultimately we're going to be interested in this information in the same way when it's available.
And is that a goal of your guys' your kind of quest to get this information out there, is to see how much of the revenue sharing is going to, say, men's athletics in comparison to say women's athletics, and maybe like getting that that scale evened up or something? Is that like a goal?
No, I don't have any sort of advocacy goal with this. I think the public will be interested in how much is being spent on men's versus women's sports, but I expect that we'll be spending more paying male athletes, because we spend more. I say we, I mean LSU and other universities in Louisiana as a state spend more on men's sports than on women's sports. So I don't think people will be surprised to find that out.
Oh, absolutely not. I think we'll actually be shocked to see how lopsided the number is. Um, the argument is the athletes, aren't officially employees, but neither are we 100% sure where exactly all of the money is coming from NIL wise, and how that breaks down. Is what portion of the NIL is coming from the public funding, which of it is coming from the private funding? And there's been some people out there who said, LSU athletics does not take a dollar of public funding. Is that true? Is that not true? This it's a big, like, people are pounding on the table saying they do not take a single dollar, a single dime of public money. Is that true?
That is not true. So I think there's this misconception that exists because of the term self-generated revenue. Now, for budget nerds like me, self-generated revenue is pretty common in the discussions that we're having around the state budget. If you pull up House Bill 1, which is the state budget bill every year, you'll see the LSU system's budget is about $1.2 billion, of which 800 million of which is self-generated revenue. Now, for different agencies, self-generated revenue, it takes different forms. For athletics, that's ticket sales, sponsorships, things like that. And that's all detailed in LSU's annual NCAA financial report. We know how much self-generated revenue they're making. It's public money in the same way that it's public money. Tuition money is public money. Fishing and hunting license money is public money. Inspection sticker money is public money. There are all these different ways that the state is having the taxpayers or non-taxpayers pay for services.
So as you're saying, any money, whether it comes from a private entity, public, any money that flows through LSU being a public domain, this public, this government state entity, any money that flows through there is then public money.
It is then public money. And that public money, including the self-generated revenue, can only be spent with legislative approval. So it's only until the legislature passes House Bill 1 that the budget for the next year is able to go into motion. So for that reason, we believe that this should be subject to public scrutiny.
I got to be honest, everybody, I'm kind of sitting here going, like, what are you guys looking for? Why are you guys doing this? And then you say that, and it's true that the money that goes through there is then public. It must be disclosed. That being the truth, how can you defend, like, no, we can disclose all this other stuff? How much baseball pays on, spends on how much they travel per year? It's around like 8.1 or something like that. How much this team does it, but don't you dare look at the revenue sharing or the NIL or certain aspects of this. Well, we're told now, it's obvious LSU is a government entity. Whatever money flows through there must be disclosed, must be reported. I kind of don't see where the fans have like a gripe, a pounding on the table gripe, because with that knowledge, it's got to be disclosed.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think there has always been this misinformation out there about how the LSU athletics budget works. And then you have, kind of at the same time, the conflating of different types of money. We have, there are collectives out there are foundations out there, and they kind of operate in a more secretive way than the public university does.
Oh, yeah.
We're not talking about money that the LSU Foundation is spending. We're talking about money that, or the Tiger Athletic Foundation, forgive me, the LSU Foundation is the one that supports athletic or academics.
Yeah.
We're only talking about university funding here.
Wow. Okay. So, I mean, it just like, boom, like a light bulb came off in my head when some of this stuff was mentioned. And, what you're telling me, I've been able to verify already. It is public money when it goes through that public entity known as the university, Louisiana State University. And there's kind of some interesting, kind of entrenched online narratives about, no, you can't report this money can't be reported. You can't touch this. And, it's a major concern about how other schools can take advantage of that information. Do you think that is purely the reason LSU denied this freedom of information request?
I mean, the reasons, that LSU denied it were in my article, and the competitive disadvantage was definitely one of them. I think it was one of the more vague reasons in that they gave. And I think that LSU would like to withhold a lot of information from me and from other reporters that legally it can't. And I think that ultimately we will find that they legally can't withhold this information either.
This is so interesting to me. It's kind of I mean, where do you see this going, Piper? Like, do you see this going a long court battle? Do you see this going for a few years in court? What do you think is going to happen here?
I really hope not. You know, public records cases are typically expedited, so we should have a court hearing in a few weeks, and we may have an outcome then. Depending on what the outcome is, either LSU or we may appeal, and that would, of course, prolong it. But I'm hoping it doesn't come to that.
Do you think that this information is that like they want to protect this information that much that they will that LSU would take this as far as it goes? Do you get that vibe?
In other public records lawsuits, they have appealed as far as they can go.
Oh yeah, Title IX. When we issued freedom of information, I mean, I was a bumbling idiot. I'd only been doing this for 2 or 3 years, but like I looked up exactly how to do it. I talked to some actual journalists, figured out the process. I did it correctly. They are like, boom, there's not even a file on this player. There's not even a Title IX. And I knew that was an absolute lie because Hush Blackwell had already like disclosed that name was among these the alleged. And so it was like, you're absolutely lying to my face. This is crazy. I ended up getting the information from them. It was awesome. But it took a long process and it was worth every ounce of it. So I'm just saying everyone's got to understand here that like as much as we want LSU to be successful, we want LSU to succeed, this stuff must be disclosed. And I wonder though, Piper, is the nuts and bolts of all these NIL deals at other schools, are those, have you seen those being publicly disclosed yet? Like in other states, like say Georgia?
No, I don't think that we've seen details of the revenue sharing agreements disclosed. Maybe there was one state that it's been months since I read the article, but there have been a couple other similar lawsuits to mine. I'm hoping eventually all public universities who engage in revenue sharing will have to disclose this information. And then that would get rid of the competitive disadvantage argument.
Exactly. That's the thing, is people want to say this, competitive disadvantage, and it would be for LSU if this information comes out and no one else has to for a few years. But if LSU is able to maybe delay this case until college football can get its act together and enact something like that where everyone has to disclose it, no ifs, ands, or buts, you can't get around it and deny freedom of information. If you're a public university, it's out there already. I really think we've given some good insight to the fans here about exactly what's going on here. I don't really think this should be a big argument, a battle of wills. I don't really know how you could be on the other side of this of like, no, keep that information private. It's like, are you also like, hey, keep the Epstein files private? Like, I'm not comparing them, it's not, but I'm just meaning like, why would someone want to be on the side of like, no, keep the secrets away from the public, especially if you're not, a brass member, a part of the institution? I don't know. I'm just,
sports fans care so much about their teams to the point where, sometimes we get a little irrational. I'm guilty of that sometimes too. When I'm watching a game and I'm like yelling at a ref in a public bar, I'm like, that's not normal Piper behavior. We sometimes we get heated about the teams we love. And I think there are fans who are concerned that this is going to hurt LSU. And that's not the goal at all here, but I get why people are upset.
Absolutely. I think if that information is disclosed in the short term, it definitely could. But I think it would take another cycle, another class until that information could really be used to hurt LSU. They're not going to really be able to pick off the players because the transfer portal, there's no spring transfer portal window anymore, so there's no
Right.
worry about them coming to pick off the players before the season. That's not going to happen.
And I
So,
think it's also important to keep in mind that this is just like one way that athletes are getting money. You know,
yeah.
if they're being promised money from private sources that doesn't flow through the athletic department, which we know that they're being promised a certain amount of NIL money from donors. We don't get to know that because that doesn't go through the athletic department. So that part will not be disclosed and doesn't pose a competitive disadvantage. It's only the public part that we're looking at.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean that's the thing is I think thank you for coming on and for really dispelling a lot of some of the narratives there, but at the same time, I totally understand why fans would be concerned with information getting out there because you just don't want, it really makes the hair on my back stand up knowing other schools would have all the information, but then they don't have to disclose it. That would be like, oh, like, do not want that, do not want that. But if we can
Maybe some
somehow
other journalists will follow my lead in those states.
exactly. That's what I'm hoping for is like a big push across the country. And I just think, maybe at other places they've played ball more and not really looking for those numbers but at the same time, I haven't really looked into it. Maybe other schools have those numbers more publicly available than LSU does. I'm not sure about that. But Piper, thank you so much for coming on. I know you are well in demand. You're going to be doing a few more shows tonight. Good luck and kick some ass. And thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course, Piper. Take it easy. That was Piper Hutchinson telling us why she's suing LSU. Did it have to come to suing LSU? Did it have to get to this point? Did it have to get so serious? Did it have to escalate? That escalated quickly. You know, um, Obviously LSU wasn't going to give this information unless that happened, right? And obviously I understand why LSU doesn't want to give this information out. I understand that fully. But I also understand why they want these numbers. But I also, I should have asked her this question. I feel like I asked it a few times, but didn't like just get it more simplified of just like why? Like why are you looking into this so specifically that we want those NIL numbers, we want those NIL numbers, we want those revenue sharing numbers, and I get that it should be made public. But don't you see why it's not? Can't you understand why it's not being made public? I mean, I can. I get why and I'm someone who's like, we have uncovered things. We have found some things. We have been enemies of LSU at times where people are like, who work for LSU or people around LSU are like, you're an enemy of LSU. And it's like, I'm sorry, we had to break something that was negative. I'm sorry we had to show something that wasn't good. I'm sorry we had to like cover something that didn't show LSU in a good light. These type of things. But it's part of the job when you're covering the team. However, this does seem to me of going out of the way to and you heard me ask the question. I said, is this you guys trying to make revenue sharing be like more equitable? Are you guys like trying, is your end goal basically try to make the system force, say, LSU to spend as much as they do on men's as they do for women's, something like that, which would radically alter college sports I mean, it could probably make college football something that is almost unidentifiable even to what it is today. I mean, it could go in a very different way where it breaks off into a very weird place that I don't think any of us want it to go. And so my main questions to her were like, are you trying to are you trying to fundamentally change college football with this by getting the name, that information with the names, the numbers out there, and every school and every state has to do that as well, follow suit, or is it just screw LSU, get them screwed by having their numbers revealed and no one else's? I We're gonna have Todd Horn on tomorrow to talk about this some more, and I'm not alone in this. Okay, I've talked to a lot of people in the media. I've talked to a lot of people just when this first came out. What do you think about this? What's your read on this? And a lot of them are saying, I don't even know what to think. I don't even really have an opinion. Like, whatever. Like, put the numbers out there or don't. Whatever. And for me, I've kind of basically been in that same vein where it's like it would hurt LSU in the short term, but I'm sure the whole process would be switched at some point, would be changed at some point into a process where everyone has to disclose those numbers. But here's the thing, right now, that's a long ways off. Right now, and from what I gather, it looks like only LSU would be the only ones to actually disclose that. I also wanted to give a shout out to Carter the Power. I guess not really a shout out, but just thinking of you, man. Saw that your news of your grandfather dying, passing away, and he was a very seems like an extremely respected man when you've got people like President Dr. Tate, um, former LSU president, current Rutgers president, who's literally saying that Carter's grandfather was great to him. So thinking of you, Carter, and sorry for the loss of your grandfather, and may he rest in peace. I you know, I don't know what to make of this whole thing because I mean, I'm sure you'll have Piper is about to go on a few other shows, and we'll see what if maybe she gives further information on those shows or not. Um, but we basically asked her, "What are you trying to get? What are you trying to find? What are you trying to look for?" And basically met with the same kind of like, "We're just trying to make this public. We're trying to just get this public. Trying to just make that should be publicly disclosed. That's how it should be." And I understand that. And I her spelling it out that any money that goes through a state university, a public university, government funded, taxpayer funded university must be publicly disclosed, even if the money entering the university comes from a private donor. And she's right. But I find it interesting that like they don't have to report foreign gifts or contracts unless it's over 250K in a year. Like that's kind of strange. I just saw that. But kind of hard to know what to make of this whole thing because I people who think this is like going to take LSU down, it's like, dude, like you're actually mocking LSU saying something like that. Like LSU wouldn't be able to handle like a report like that, or even if the information leaked about their players and how much they earn. Um, Obviously that's not in Lane Kiffin's best interest to have that money go out there because then his locker room, his his group of players that he just brought in the portal, the guys he retained, the guys who are going to be in position battles, we're already worrying about this team gelling and figuring it out together already. And then you put this information out, and suddenly you have, you know, maybe some bad vibes, some rivalries that get a little more personal off the field because of this type of information coming out. Like that's not good for a locker room. But I think we kind of set the template here. I think any framing of the conversation in any other way than what we just did is kind of being disingenuous and trying to make an obscene mockery of actual reality. When it's like we even went into the are you looking for a scandal? Or you think there's a scandal? Do you think there's a this? And you heard it from Piper. She said no. So, we gave as much pushback as possible with while being polite. We tried to do as many follow-ups as possible. But here's the one thing I will say. I wish I knew more about some of the situations around this to be able to ask better questions. And that's one thing that is something I need to get better at. But thank you for watching, and we'll be having more of this, more talking about this and other things with LSU. We're going to be doing our spring preview part 2 article coming out. And then we're going to be having Todd Horn on the show tomorrow night as well. He is another member of this lawsuit, um, joining Piper Hutchinson and Chris Yakamoto as 3 reporters suing LSU after their Freedom of Information Act request was denied. I don't really see. I don't blame LSU for hiding the information or just not disclosing it, not really even hiding it, and I don't really blame the media members for wanting the information. Then again, for myself, I already know a lot of the numbers of how much certain guys were paid, and even if they're like off by 200K or 20K, they're usually ballpark. Like they're usually like right in that spot. There's nothing usually egregiously off about the money. Like 100K is I think the number that from the sources we've had over the years telling us NIL, I think 100K, 120K or something was the most we were off by. And so, it's still a shit ton of money. And so you never want to be off by anything, but usually the numbers we're reporting NIL wise have been on the money. And then later on we hear oh, yep, we had it right. Or, ooh, we were off by maybe 10,000 there. Ooh. So like this to me isn't of extreme interest, but anytime information that's not being disclosed is put out there, anytime the tree is shaken, sometimes the something deeper is found there. Not saying that's going to be the case, but I know in my history, my limited history is, amateur journalist, sleuth, LSU sleuth. Um, so sometimes I thought there was nothing there, and I shook the tree and was broke a story that is one of the biggest stories of my career so far. Like that's the type of stuff that happens. And knowing Todd like I do, knowing Piper not as much as I've talked to Todd and stuff, but I've started to get to know her. Chris Nakamoto, don't know him at all, but I've seen his reporting over the years be pretty good, except for one thing I will say. Chris Nakamoto heavily reported that um, basically was part of the regurgitation of blaming Kyron Lacey in the aftermath of the accident, which, as we found out later, was just kind of not the case. But sorry, we are under the weather. Like, I don't know what it is. I woke up feeling so sick. And so I apologize for that. We're trying to hopefully get through this with some Dayquil or something, but man, oh man, oh man, I'm feeling like I'm just, that song by Dwight Twilley where he says, "I'm on fire, 'cause baby, I'm on fire." Like that is what I feel like right now. I feel like I'm on fire. Um, Hopefully we still did a good interview, and we feel like, the fans felt like we asked the questions they wanted to ask, but at the same time, we let her speak. We didn't try and dictate the conversation. We wanted to give her a chance to tell you, the fans, exactly why she, Todd, and Chris are doing this and exactly what their goal is. That's what my aim was for this, and I think we accomplished that. Whether or not you agree with her answers, believe her answers, or whatever you think about the answers, I think we at least gave every opportunity for you guys as fans, as LSU diehards, as people who want LSU to be successful, not being sued or at war with journalists, things like that. You don't want that type of drama around your program. I understand that. That's no, nobody wants that. But I think these reporters are after something a little bit deeper. I don't think this is just about the money, and I don't think this is just about. I'm not going to reveal any of that because I'm going to keep that to myself until I talk to Todd tomorrow night. But I think there could be something deeper that they're looking at here, and I have a really really big idea that I think I might be onto something with. We'll see about that. Could be completely off though. Anyway, everybody, thank you for watching our show with Piper. We could have peppered Piper with more questions, but I feel like that was we would have just kind of been going around in circles. This situation has a long way to go and much to be revealed, and maybe a lot of twists and turns that you didn't really expect. And I just want us all to, instead of getting well entrenched on our side of the line, let's actually like look at the situation objectively and see what the truth is. And I get it. As an LSU fan, I don't like any information on your program like this being put out there. But as a public university in the second poorest state in the country, they need to disclose this information. Absolutely. It's fantastic. We're back being able to live stream on X after Elon took a bunch of our money. Thank you, Elon. You suspended our account for no reason and then took our money for a premium account that we couldn't even use. But now you gave me a premium account for like a fourth of the price. So maybe you're like, oh, give him a good deal on the new premium package. So I'm paying like $3 for this. So thank you for letting us stream on X again, Elon. Um, Everybody, have a good rest of your night. We'll be talking to you very soon. We have a myriad of things coming. We just trying to get this all together. And damn, under the weather too. This is like a cold or a flu that's kicking my ass, guys. I'm just whew, not feeling too good with this. Um, my babies were feeling like shit for like a few days, like a week ago. And it was really hard to watch them. It was all last weekend, so now I guess I get to spend this weekend sick as hell. You guys have never seen me without the glasses, have you? Well, here's me without the glasses while sick as hell. Interviewing people about why they're suing LSU. Everybody have a good rest of your night. Thank you for watching. It's great that we're able to um have the multiple platforms again. Everything's set up like it should be. And look at that. The viewership jumped up big time when you all can actually see that we're live. So thank you for joining us. Sorry for what's been going on the last little while, the visibility of our stuff, but we're trying to get this back up, and you can help us do that by liking, subscribing, retweeting, sharing, all of that stuff. It doesn't cost a cent. Just press a few buttons, a few clicks, and it helps us greatly because while others are trying to spend their time sending bots to silence or demonetize or screw with our what we're doing, what we're growing, you guys who support us every freaking day can also help us even more by just always making sure you press those buttons and share with your friends and share with your people. We really appreciate it, guys. Thank you so much. Go Tigers as always.